French author and politician Victor Hugo once exclaimed, "Dawn and resurrection are synonymous." The reappearance of the light is the same as the survival of the soul. Another writer turned politician, Canadian Michael Ignatieff, writing about genocide in Rwanda, argues this exterminatory impulse is much misunderstood. It's actually a kind of longing for utopia, a blood sacrifice in the worship of an idea of paradise. What could be more like paradise on earth than to live in a community without enemies? To create a world with no more borders or watch posts, a world freed from fear in the night and war by day, a world safe from the deadly contamination and temptation of other tribes. What could be more beautiful than to live in a community with people who resemble each other in every particular? We all long for harmony, for an end to the seemingly interminable discord of human relations. What could be more seductive than to kill in order to put an end to all killings? I found it tempting to stay with Victor Hugo's image of dawn and ignore Michael Ignatieff's insights into the exterminatory impulses in humanity. But when on a daily basis we witness hatred stalking the towns and villages so strikingly referenced and named in the reading from the Acts of the Apostles of Jesus' homeland, it is difficult to turn a deaf ear to Ignatieff. At times, our world sadly resembles a grave. Podcaster Tom Holland tells of while filming a documentary in northern Iraq, he stood horrified at the carnage wrought by Islamic State in a town where men were literally crucified. Seeing crucifixion used for its original purpose opened up an existential abyss in Holland. Holland describes a personal experience in an abandoned church systematically desecrated by Islamic State. Holland says he experienced a thin place between heaven and earth, as amongst the rubble he discovered a smashed picture of the Annunciation, the Virgin Mary being visited by the angel Gabriel. Holland, an experienced historian, was initially inclined to put what he experienced down to hydration and nausea, but he couldn't dismiss it so easily. In his own words, he described what he experienced as being like a kind of sweet sense of intoxication. Holland, for years, described himself as a secular, liberal Westerner devoid of Christian faith. Following years of historical study and research, Holland began to realize the impact that those closest to the resurrection in the 1st century have actually had on the 21st century West's moral imagination. This intrigued Holland. Furthermore, Holland discovered that the utopia promised by science and reason once religions dissolve has only brought confusion and a mental health crisis in the young. Intrigued by the impact of the first Christians, Holland has begun to sense that the story of the resurrection is true. He resonates with the argument: if people hadn't actually believed in the Christian promise of redemption, And if they hadn't been able to hope in the face of death, they wouldn't have had the courage to change the world in Jesus' name. Intriguingly for me, as I prepared for Easter, I listened to a prisoner argue that Christ is neither afraid of people's mistakes nor their differences. Therefore, believers in the resurrection must go to the ones we've pushed out of society and pull them back in. We must work to form interconnected communities of justice inspired by the resurrection. And only then will we heal broken relationships. What a powerful case this prisoner makes to counteract the dream for a utopia where everybody's the same and there are no differences. Tom Holland had a tender spiritual experience in the wreckage of a church in Iraq, soon after learning about 21st century crucifixions. He experienced that thin place between heaven and earth where resurrection breaks through. While at times our troubled world resembles a grave, our Easter faith teaches us that the dead can come back to life. As G.K. Chesterton wrote, Christianity has died many times and risen again, for it had a God who knew the way out of the grave. Like the women in today's gospel, we welcome the dawn on this Easter morning. Amen.